In the event of an emergency, do you have your survival kit ready? This morning's guest is here to help you get prepared. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio. We're focused on emergency management, and we're visiting with Horry County's Director of Emergency Management, Randy Webster. Good morning.
Good morning, Greg. How you doing?
And, you know, when we say Randy, of course, I've seen Randall, I've seen, and do you go by Director Webster? Do you
no,
go by, okay.
Usually Randy or Randall, depending on the situation, but I go with Randy. It's been my nickname forever.
Even more exciting, President of the South Carolina Emergency Management Division.
Yeah, that's a special thing. I was sworn in yesterday in Columbia, and so it's a statewide organization that we work with all the emergency managers to try to, better our cause in terms of all the things that we deal with in emergency preparedness and terrorism.
Randy, how many emergency managers would there be statewide? And obviously some of the differences between surely the different parts of the state.
Right, there's one emergency manager for every county. And a lot of emergency managers wear different hats, some more than others, but it does represent the entire state.
Son of a gun, so at least 46 emergency managers.
Correct.
But of course this position's a volunteer position.
Well, that's right. Yeah, there's no dollars attached to it. But what it does for us, though, locally it gives us a voice on a statewide level and lets us work throughout the state to better the situations for emergency managers, especially on a coastal aspect that we are. There's a lot of issues that we have to deal with. But when you look across the state into the inland area, they have separate issues to deal with. And so it gives me a better mix of what's going on with everybody and how to approach all those different issues that we have.
Keeps you abreast of a heck of a lot of issues that I'm sure some parts of Horry County think about. I mean, as if the county's more or less like multiple counties in one sense. Of course, there's the real coastal side here, and then a heck of a lot of square miles of non-coastal.
That's exactly right. You cross that waterway or a little bit beyond Conway, and you're in a whole different area, and has to be treated like that because they have separate needs. So Horry County is like a small South Carolina. It's got the coastal plain and also the farming agricultural area.
Right, absolutely. Real quick about yourself, Randy. Are you originally from the area?
No, I'm not. I've been here since May of 1989, and a little story about that. I had my first touch with a hurricane when Hurricane Hugo came in, and I had no idea what that was. I'm originally from West Virginia, so is my entire family is here with me, my wife and two kids, and then her parents are here. But we all grew up together in Huntington, West Virginia, and we moved here in May of 1989. And like I said, September came through. I was working for Horry County Emergency Medical Service at the time. I was a paramedic.
Right.
And I had no clue what a hurricane was. Like so many people who move here now.
Oh, yeah.
From other areas of the country. So I can really take a personal touch when I start talking about the hurricanes and what to do, because I actually have experienced that issue. So when September of '89 came through and Hurricane Hugo came through, I didn't have any clue what to expect.
And what was that like? Do you remember it? Yeah.
It was a little bit fascinating, and it also has that anxiety level of wow, this is a hurricane, but not having a clue.
Right.
I had to deal with floods and tornadoes and things like that
in
the mountainous area, but hurricane just wasn't even on my radar scope. And so then that night, as the storm came into Horry County, and I actually evacuated because I didn't have to work that shift, and ended up in Charlotte. Yeah, and that was an experience. And I can sit here and tell you I didn't evacuate when we were supposed to.
Right.
Waited too late. So I can really have a personal experience when I try to tell people you need to do what you're asked to do.
Oh, yeah, and for our viewers who haven't been here or weren't here in '89, I laughed when you said I evacuated to Charlotte. Share with them the significance of being in Charlotte then.
Hurricane Hugo rewrote the entire book for hurricanes, on how we deal with it, not only in South Carolina, but even on a national level.
Right.
Hurricane conditions, when Hurricane Hugo came in McClellanville, did all the damage there, but went through Sumter County and right into Charlotte, and we had hurricane conditions in Charlotte, 100-mile-an-hour winds in Charlotte, tons of tornadoes, And I can remember looking out the window of a family member we were staying with, and the front picture window just bowed in.
God.
It was just, and debris was flying everywhere, and that was terrifying.
Right.
Because you couldn't see a thing. Pitch dark. It was the middle of the morning, early hour morning, and then the devastation afterwards was just phenomenal.
There in Charlotte and coming back to the coast.
All the way back. So then we had personal belongings here, and all the way back. It took us forever to get back. And the biggest problem we had was we were almost out of gas when we got to Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
And I could not believe how far a quarter of a tank of gas got me coming back towards the beach. But we made it and found one gas station open that had electricity still somewhere between here and Charlotte. But we made it back and got back, and our property was fine. But still, that whole process of that trip back, understanding you need to get back in to see your property, and all the emotional feelings that everybody has about a storm. I can say I've been there. Now, unfortunately, we haven't had those kind of conditions since September of '89. Even though we've had numerous storms within Horry County, we've not had true hurricane conditions to amount to anything since Hugo. And that bothers me because a lot of new people are here.
Right.
And a lot of people think they've ridden through hurricanes, and we haven't.
You know, of course, the fascinating thing in this position as Director of Emergency Management, I mean, you just highlighted some of those. We're thinking about a gas station, power on. You know, we're thinking about traveling with family. In that instance, I guess, were your sons yet around?
No, it was just
you
my
and your
wife and I, but we had 2 dogs, so
Right.
the whole pet issue is there.
Big issue with pets. And, of
Yes.
course, you highlighted one important thing when you think about it, that aspect of, you know, you were encouraged not to be moving around, not to, as an EMS person, even
Right.
being down here, you're encouraged not to go out because not to light the stove.
That's right.
Lots of things you can't do because EMS couldn't get to you, the fire
right.
department can't get to you. So there's so many issues. As director, you've got to be thinking about commercial issues as well as practical issues about pets and other things.
Oh,
How can you keep it all together?
Well, it's just a methodical process you have to go through, and you're right. It's everything from the entire event, pre-storm, during the storm, and post-impact. And there are numerous things we have to go through. And one of the ways we learn, that I've learned, is just this past year after the devastation in Florida, a couple of members of my staff and I went to Pensacola, where Ivan came through. And we learned so much more from being down there for a few days to see the devastation and get a feel for how they were trying to respond. And that's what really worries me about getting a Category 3, 4, or 5 storm in our county, because it's very similar makeup in geography and landmass and all that, beachfront community, and they're still not back together a year later. So,
Of course, McClellanville's in Charleston County. Is that really where the where the center of it hit?
yeah, the eye of the storm came through McClellanville, just about 30 miles north of Charleston, and just. If you remember, if you were here, if you don't, the Francis Marion National Forest was there. And I can remember going back down there to Charleston a few days after the storm. And that forest down there was just leveled about 15 feet high. All the pine trees were cut about the same level. It looked like you took a huge lawnmower and just cut the whole tops out. And it took a long, long time to even get that forest back up in any type of shape whatsoever. So, tremendous amount of issues after a storm ends.
Of course, as you say, you know, to be inland in Charlotte, hundreds of miles inland, and to see the impact of 100-mile-plus-per-hour winds. So the category position of Hugo would have been 3 or 4.
It was actually a 4 as it came into McClellanville.
Right.
And that's the other misnomer. We did not experience Category 3 or 4 storm in Horry County. What we saw in Horry County with all the devastation in Garden City, Cherry Grove, and all along the beachfront and some inland was a Category 1 storm. The wave, storm surge issues were, 10, 12 feet. That scares me. It really does, because we've not experienced that at all since then.
You know, we've got 25 minutes, but now 15 minutes. You think that aspect, you don't have enough time to talk about all the issues that people who weren't here in '89 need to be thinking about, whether it's our viewers in the PD in southeastern North Carolina or here in Horry County, where you actually have a position that you work for, and your big goal is to really get the word out about things that people need to be doing.
That's right. And the entire region needs to understand the storms do not stop at the coast. They don't stop at the Intercoastal Waterway. They don't stop at the end of Horry County. Charlotte, didn't expect to get 100-mile-an-hour hurricane-force winds 12 hours after landfall in McClellanville. This entire region needs to be prepared. The best thing you can do is be proactive. Get your hurricane kits put together. Get all your documentations that you need. We've got lots of information we can provide to people through our website or other places. But just react proactively, not react to the storm afterwards.
If a viewer needs to get off to work now or out of the house, what's the best number to call, or is there a place to go online? A lot of viewers don't have internet access. Is there a phone number someone could call?
Yeah, we can call our office. It's the Horry County Emergency Management Department. It's 915-5150.
Okay.
Or horrycounty.org if you have the ability to get to the website, and we have a hurricane icon section, or they can go straight to our Emergency Management Department.
Okay, and that's 843-915-5150.
Correct.
Okay, at horrycounty.org, and there'd be the emergency management. I think you also said at the county's website there's some great information about hurricane preparedness.
There's a lot of links there that they can look at. There's a lot of information we have on the website, and it's very good. And if you just follow the information and take the storm season seriously, because we have the potential to have a very busy storm season this year, according to all indications. And it only takes one for us to have a bad day. And I want to thank Florida for stepping up last year and taking one for the team with 4 storms, but that was just unprecedented.
Yeah.
And once again, that has just rewritten the books too. And the only real other issue about the storm is we could talk a little bit about reentry, because that is an issue, and people need to understand that once it's safe to get back into the areas, that we'll get them back in. I would want to get back to my property.
Right.
I would want to get back to my business, but it needs to be safe to do so. But understand, it took a lot of years to build what we have. We're not going to rebuild it in a week.
Right. Those are good words, Randy, and that's very important, particularly for our viewers in the PD in southeastern North Carolina, many of them whom have homes along the Strand, as well as other folks on the other side of the waterway have homes up and down the Strand who really want to get back here. But you just pointed that out. That's a great point.
Yeah.
It took a long time to build it. It won't be overnight to rebuild it.
They're still rebuilding in Pensacola a year later. So it's a lot of devastation.
You know, what are some of the most critical aspects of emergency management? You think about reentry, those are critical things to think about. What are some proactive things that viewers could be doing now, aside from calling your office or going online or getting out their emergency kit? I know the South Carolina Press Association distributed a bunch last week all over the state. I know they were inserted in a heck of a lot of newspapers, dailies and community papers. What are some proactive things that viewers could be doing right now?
The first thing they need to do is understand that, if you're in an evacuation zone, you need to heed that order to evacuate. So prepare yourself to do that. In other words, have all your pertinent documents, your personal documents, banking information, tax information, things like that you may need in the event your house is destroyed. All your insurance information with you or in a safe place location. Make sure you've got a hurricane evacuation plan. Part of your plan would include the paperwork. Part of it is where are you going to go? What if that area is not available to you? Where else are you going to go? Have plan A, plan B, and plan C. If you have pets, make sure you take care of those, make those arrangements way ahead of time. Now's the time to start figuring out what you're going to do. Shelters will not take pets. So there are locations within the county that will accept your pet, but please don't stay behind just to stay with your pet. Do something, make the decisions now of what you're going to do. And when we do get the mandatory evacuation order from the governor, once he issues that, that's what it means. It's mandatory to go. If we start getting a direct hit here from a storm, once winds meet 40-mile-an-hour threshold or sustained winds, public safety starts to be able not to be able to respond. In other words, at 60 miles an hour, we can't. So you may be on your own, depending on the size and speed of the storm, 10, 12, 24 hours. If you look last year at Hurricane, I think it was Francis, that came in and just spun and spun and spun in one place in Florida as it was going across. Took it forever to clear out. You're on your own.
Right.
Nobody can come and get you. You can call 911 all you want to. It cannot be done.
Right. And it's both can't and won't. Won't because you're risking the lives of the folks trying to go.
We've had studies completed that show where you get those kind of wind speeds an ambulance could be turned over. You know, a fire truck, yes, can make it a lot more on a higher wind speed, but what happens when you try to get out of the truck?
Right.
You know, you can't make it from the truck to anywhere because you will get blown over. And then all the debris and everything else going on, it's just, no, we can't do it. So people need to understand that. Don't wait till then to decide you need help to leave.
How large is the staff of emergency management? Of course, oftentimes, I'm sure it's probably even much larger because a lot of the EMS, fire, police, other folks almost begin to wear the hats of emergency management during that time.
On a given day like today, there are 5 of us in the office. I have 3 emergency planners, myself, and an administrative assistant. And we not only deal with natural disasters, part of my team also deals with man-made disasters such as terrorism, and that's a whole other issue to go into. Because we have to plan for those. But the one thing about it is, no matter what you do, if you plan for a hurricane with your hurricane kit, that kit's not just for hurricanes. You can take that kit for any reason you need to evacuate your home, be it terrorism, be it flooding, be it natural disaster, be it tornado, be it power's been out for 2 days, I need to do something. That kit is just not a hurricane kit, it's a survival kit.
Those are great words, absolutely. That's very important. Speaking of terrorism, there's one vital aspect that ties in not only to this area, but the PD as well. I believe you were recently selected to serve as chairman of the PD Regional Counterterrorism Coordinating Council. Long name there. Randy, what all is going on with that, and how does that impact our viewers in the PD as well as here in ORE?
I am very excited to be appointed to that position from Chief Stewart from SLED. It gives us an opportunity to continue to work with the work that's being done within the region. The past chairman has retired from his position in Sumter County, and he's done a great job getting us moving forward. So I'm just looking forward to the ability to continue to move forward with the group. We meet as we need to discuss the terrorism issues within the state, not only on the grant funding that comes through, but also how we're going to strategize the state itself into to meeting the needs that we have with terrorism.
You pointed out the survival kit for hurricanes. Again, important for viewers to think that could clearly be a survival kit for terrorism issues as well.
A great example is the issue in Graniteville back in January in the middle of the winter when the train wreck with all the chlorine leak.
Right.
Came right out of the blue. If you'd had a hurricane kit or your survival kit, people had to evacuate for 3 or 4 days. There you go.
Another great reason to call it a survival kit, because so many areas outside of the coastal region may not be thinking about needs for a hurricane kit.
Correct. Yeah.
But it is critical to be thinking about a survival kit.
Yeah, we look at it as a hurricane kit because that's a big risk that we have. But you go inland, and there's also the same risks plus others. So people, that's a good way to look at it.
Did you grow up thinking you'd get into, and of course you talked about in '89 being with emergency management or in EMS, and then later going into, I don't think we talked about where you ended up after that, of course, for 3.5 years as chief in a different position in Horry County.
Started out as a paramedic with Horry County Emergency Medical Service.
Medical.
I'm trying to get
forgive me. It's
too many different acronyms here. But did that and worked my way up into, I was public information officer for the county for a little while when they started looking at that issue again several years ago now. I think it was in the early 90s. And then worked into, as the fire and EMS merged in 2000, the fire chief's position came open in 1999, and I applied for that. Of course, my original background started in the fire department back in West Virginia.
In West Virginia,
so,
okay.
Became fire chief of Horry County and officially in 1999, and up until 2003, when this position was available. And so I decided to move more into emergency management because, like you said earlier, all of public safety is a part of emergency management.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I can do a lot with it here. And then having been out and touched the other disciplines a little bit, I've got an understanding of how they look at things, how they view things. And so my biggest weakness, if there is one, is in law enforcement. I'm actually looking to do some training with them to kind of be able to talk their lingo and get that deep understanding of how they feel about things. And all that does is just continue to build the emergency management role as a coordinator. That's what we are. We're just a coordinating source.
Right.
to bring all these people together and to respond to the needs of the community.
Clearly coordinating with fire, with EMS, with police or sheriff's departments, depending on the county or cities, the municipalities of which throughout the county. Who are some of the other bodies that you may be coordinating with that people may or may not think of? Are there some other bodies that come in from out of the area?
Well, not only are we the local coordinator for public safety, we work with the hospitals, we work with the coroner's offices, we work with anything you can think of that deals with responding to a disaster.
All media.
All the media, exactly. On a state level, we work with the State Emergency Management Division, the National Guard, the different law enforcement agencies there. And then on the federal level, we're the coordinating between the state and federal agencies as they come to Horry County, including FEMA, Corps of Engineers, and the host just goes on. And that's just in the hurricane world. Then we start into the Homeland Security aspect, and there's a whole different players there.
So, Randy, as I sit here and think about it, you kind of become a mini governor during that time.
Well, I wouldn't say
there's a heck of a lot
but
that obviously has to flow through you. I mean, like the governor has to think about all aspects throughout the state. You obviously have to think of a heck of a lot.
Yeah, we have to be prepared to deal with the influx of all that information that comes in. And we're basically a clearinghouse for Horry County.
Right.
And then on a regional basis on some of our aspects. On our Homeland Security part, Horry County is host to the Advanced COBRA team, which is a regional response team that is part of the COBRA stands for Chemical, Ordnance, Biological, and Radiological Response Team.
Okay.
So it's an acronym for terrorism issues, and that team is there's 4 regional teams, of which Horry County has one, all funded through Homeland Security grants. We've seen in Horry County over $2 million in Homeland Security money come in to help get us up and running as an advanced team, and then other things that we're doing. We also are home based to an urban search and rescue team that works out of Columbia, mainly through the fire department side. One of my emergency planners heads that up for this region as well. So we have a lot in our toolbox to offer, and but it's well worth it. And that's part of being on the regional chairmanship. It helps to continue those programs and make sure they stay viable, and because we're all here just to help.
Well, Randy, growing up, had you always thought about, did you have family interest or otherwise that prompted you to get into a real public safety aspect, either in fire or then later in EMS?
All my life I wanted to be a fireman.
Really?
That's follow the big red truck. That's what I wanted to do. And that's what really brought me into the public safety world. And I started out as a volunteer fireman and got hired on as the local fire department, and then kind of branched into the EMS world. I really got into helping somebody one-on-one, and you know, there was an opportunity for years. I was a paramedic for almost 17 years to walk into a perfect stranger's life and hopefully make a difference for them right there. You know, good, bad, or ugly sometimes. And unfortunately, a lot of times after you were finished, you walked away, you never knew what happened. But those moments you were with somebody face to face, when they're most vulnerable a lot of times, and good times and bad, I really enjoyed that patient contact. So that's kind of what drove me into that. And then obviously my heartstrings pulled back into the fire department as I moved up in ranks within Horry County. And so it's something you never realize when you're little. Sometimes your dreams come true, and they have for me. It's been very good to me. It shows.
It shows, Randy. You think of that aspect. I wanted to mention this file of life. Some fire department officials from the city of Myrtle Beach have been with us recently and bringing those file of lives. Another critical thing, kind of like a mini kit, you know, but of course for firemen and EMS who arrive. Critical things when we think about the lives of public safety and other officials that come into our lives. It really has an impact on a day-to-day basis.
It really does. I mean, the public safety is here for just that reason. We want to help as much as we can. And it's a thankless job, but I'll tell you right now, very few people are in it for the job. They're in it for the passion. And you can tell, you either like it or you don't. And I'm very proud to be a part of that team.
That's a great point. In it for the passion. If you weren't currently the director of emergency management for Horry County, where do you think your passion would take you?
I have no idea. I don't, because I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love it. I look forward to coming to work every day. I've got an excellent staff that helps me out. And we are just growing, you know, in all the programs we have to do. There's a lot of work, but you know, I really feel at the end of the day that we've really accomplished something for the people in Horry County. And now I'm even more excited to work on a regional level. to helpfully bring people things in our region that they really need.
Absolutely, both in the PD terrorism aspect as well as statewide.
That's right, statewide with
The new position you achieved yesterday.
Yeah, so a lot on the plate, but the plate's pretty big. So
that it is. Randy, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Randy Webster coming up next. Take the time to write down that phone number, 843-915-5150. 843-915-5150. I wish you'd been here a minute ago. You could have seen that gleam in his eye as he said, it's all about saving lives. It's all about saving lives. You wonder if he thought that way as a teenager, as he was following the big red truck, thinking at some point it'll all be about saving lives. He probably was. He was thinking that way in '89, arriving here. He and his wife's life as they rushed off to Charlotte and then came back thinking about saving lives. EMS back in '89, back into fire, and then expanding there, and now emergency management. It's a critical issue. Day to day, folks need to be thinking about it. That hurricane survival guide down here, whether it's a survival guide or a hurricane guide, you need to be thinking about putting that kit together. Take the time. Give them a call at 843-915-5150.